Los geht's.
Off we go.
Ich nehme Sie
I'm
mit
taking you
zum
with me
Weite,
to the
wirkt
festival
Festival
of
der
Wider
Evangelischen
Outlook
Kirche in
Works
Westfalen.
of the Evangelical Church of Westphalia, Germany. Here we are.
Das GERRY WEBER
This is the
Stadion
GERRY
in Halle,
WEBER Stadium
Westfalen
in
wirklich groß.
Halle, in Westphalia. It's pretty big.
In das Stadion passen locker
A
über
good 12,000 people
Menschen.
fit in. And the Congress Center next door also has room for over 1,000 people. It's going to start in a couple of hours. And the market of opportunities is being set up roundabout with 150 initiatives from the church, parishes and congregations. Does everything fit? Oh, we have to improvise. Keep an overview and keep calm. That particularly applies to the organization team. For thousands of people helping, this is going to be hard work, but it's the only way for it to work. And there's very good TV technology everywhere, large projection areas for live coverage, and a lot of the content can be seen on YouTube afterwards. So the festival will carry on for months. Now here is the singer-songwriter Adel Tawir. Why did you want to come? Well, the whole spirit was very attractive to me, and I thought, I have to be there. And I'm so enthusiastic. I've been running around here, everybody's singing. You can hear them making music. There are choirs just singing a cappella. There are dance groups. Everyone smiles and waves. It's wonderful. Before the concert starts, refugees and volunteers are especially invited to attend the opening ceremony of the festival Wider Outlook Works. And Judy Bailey provided the atmosphere with her band. Wider Outlook Works, that is a festival of the worldwide goodness of God. And with this festival, we want to make it a real celebration for the refugees and their helpers. That's what we're doing. A lot of people think we should close ourselves off from the people who seek refuge here. But we would like to send a different signal in the name of the gospel. And that's why we are welcoming them particularly. And here are the helpers as well, those who've come forward to ensure that the refugees can be well received. Please stand up if you are a refugee or a helper, so that we can applaud you. And that's a very important sign. Many people feel insecure due to the global crises that we see on the media and also from the refugees arriving. Some people feel out of their depth, and populists find an easy prey. We, however, are convinced that the heritage of the Reformation empowers and inspires the churches worldwide today, because God liberates us, reconciles us, and provides life in abundance for all. And that's why we don't need to fear. And that's why in everyday life we can celebrate life and today. What gives us guidance in these days in which the world often looks so hopeless? I tell you what always gives me hope. It's the fact that there are so many different people who do something every day that we all can. Often, this extraordinary commitment comes from our neighborly love as Christians, and that's why the churches play a very prominent part in assisting the refugees. I think they're very convincing in the way they demonstrate what Christian love actually means for our society.
I'm here for one reason. I want to ask you something today. We want to ask you, friends in Germany, to help us to duplicate the humanitarian channels or corridor we are experiencing in Italy, in your country, in Germany. This is possible. This is possible because we are not dreamers. We are just asking our authorities to implement the law, to implement the Schengen Treaty about vulnerable people and the rights of vulnerable people to get humanitarian visa, to have access, safe access in Europe.
We built kindergartens in Jordan for Syrian refugee children and prefabs in Iraq for humanitarian assistance at the last minute for the refugees. And the Evonik Foundation made €1 million available for integration. But what is much more important and decisive is that our own staff are volunteering. And without our staff and many people here who spend their spare time helping refugees, all of this couldn't work. Even what the company has provided wouldn't make sense if it were not put into practice. And this commitment of the volunteers is then celebrated at the Adel Tawil concert. Adel Tawil's concert goes down well, and his team goes down for refreshments. They've put in arrows to the catering area, most important place. Waking up with a coffee. And the program is full of hundreds of events. I dip into it with interest. It's like a Kirchentag program. And there's always a Bible study. Is it not to share your food with the hungry and to provide the poor wanderer with shelter? When you see the naked, to clothe him and not to turn away from your own flesh and blood, then your light will break forth like the dawn, and your healing will quickly appear. Then your righteousness will go before you, and the glory of the Lord will be your rear guard. Will our posterity, the people to come, ask how it was possible? How could you, they might ask. How could you sit back, watch, and accept that? Why didn't you manage, with all that wealth, to organize a world in which every single person could live in dignity?
Kurze musikalische Besinnung und
After the
es
choir,
geht zur Sache.
controversy.
Kontrovers, aber immer konstruktiv und ermutigend.
We want to concentrate our help on those in the greatest need. And so we said, if anyone comes from a country like Macedonia, Serbia, and Bosnia-Herzegovina, where the judges in Germany say that their asylum application is not well-founded in 99% of the cases, because, of course, they suffer hardship, but they are states governed by the rule of law and they're candidates for the EU. Then we want these people to recognize that they can't stay as refugees. And we've tightened up the regulations for asylum, and you're criticizing that, but I stand by that. It's not easy, by the way. We do look at every single case. But we said that the people from the Western Balkans should be able to get jobs here. That's different. Well, I think this sorting people out like the sheep and the goats is intolerable. And I can tell you stories where people unfortunately died because they weren't assisted. And in this situation, I think as churches, we really must stand up for it, that people are no longer in such danger. I think that it's right. The EU needs security as well as the people in Germany. We've had so many new rules in the last few days. The advisors don't know what to advise the refugees in Greece, Serbia, Germany. The rules have kept changing, and it's very difficult to keep up. So people want security, that they can be advised properly about where to go if there are still options. And it's also important that the decisions taken about European solidarity in the summer are put into practice. What is the next step? We have to get away from this defensive law that we have in our alien law. This thinking that if you're an alien or if you're a foreigner, you're a problem. The cities that cope best with this, they do it through putting the asylums into the social affairs department. That's simply because the director of such a department has a different view than one of the lawyers. And also, disadvantaging children is against international law. Federal Minister Peter Altmaier also takes a response to this during the press conference. But I've got a question to you. What do you think of the Reformation? Well, I was brought up a Catholic. And every time I go to Wittenberg and stand in Luther's church, it really gets to me, because I think that 500 years ago people were so far-sighted and they tried to interpret the Bible and their religion to do justice to human beings. Basically, the Reformation was like a precursor of the Enlightenment, and Germany and Europe have been inspired by the Reformation to this day. And we Catholics have been compelled to take a line in this debate. Mass has led to very fascinating discussions. And I would say congratulations. Hats off to what Protestants have done in 500 years of Reformation. Reformation has become a worldwide movement, and all the visitors here get a sense of that. The international guests sing and say it out loud. And that's why we preach the gospel, so that people know God's will and God's truth. God wants people to live in dignity in the world. And to live well. And that's why we take that as the legacy of the Reformation that we pass on. Worldwide Reformation also means worldwide solidarity. And German Protestant churches have projects like the basic income, where thousands of needy families are supported in Namibia. The big income grant is not just a question of giving people money. It's about justice. It's about solidarity and sharing. And the equitable distribution of opportunities, chances that we have in the world, and not just in Namibia, but in Europe as well, Asia and the whole world. And these chances are inseparably linked to world climate justice, a major issue accompanied by the Libertas Choir from Stellenbosch.
Ein Wort zum Libertas Choir.
A word about Libertas Choir. It's been going for 25 years and shows how wonderful music can sound over ethnic and cultural borders, bringing people together.
Alle kulturellen und ethnischen Grenzen hinweg klingen kann.
Ich finde, dass viel zu wenig darüber geredet wird, dass wir im eigenen Land wie global.
I think we don't say it often enough that in our country and globally, it's very necessary to supply and to produce the necessary energy services more economically than now.
And the total installed generation capacity on the African continent, the total, is equal to what exists in France. And you also take into account that there are 400 million Africans living in cities. Where are these cities going to get energy? 62% of those populations live in informal settlements. They experience poverty. They can't be energy efficient.
This is really the connection, Bishop Huber, between a service that certainly can be produced differently here and the need to make energy available in the world in the first place. If we don't succeed on this, we won't just miss out on the goals of Paris, but we won't have a peaceful world. If it's possible to take a relatively useless product like Coca-Cola into the last village in the world, it must be possible to take renewable energy there. And poorer people are willing to pay for it. At the moment, they have energy poverty that forces them to invest in petrol and diesel, but it's much more expensive in the end than decentralized renewable energy. There's a wonderful project that we gave a prize to in North Rhine-Westphalia at the Climate Expo. Energy production in cooperatives takes place in North Rhine-Westphalia, and I think church groups are involved, because there are plenty of cooperatives in North Rhine-Westphalia. It started here, and all of this is linked. It's linked up in partnership in other parts of the world. And that's marvelous, I think. The worldwide link is illustrated again with a live transmission from Stellenbosch University in South Africa and the other half of the Libertas Choir.
Climate change is indeed exacerbating global poverty and hitting hardest those who caused it least. But we are not powerless. We can make a difference. This is the aim of the One Climate Club, and this is also what we have experienced firsthand here in South Africa with the Nkaneni project of Professor Swilling and his students. They are working with residents of informal settlements, conducting transdisciplinary research to come up with solutions to the complex challenges of sustainability.
These are huge challenges, and if we want to bring about a transformation in this, we cannot go the traditional way in which we have been trying to provide cleaner energy solutions to rural areas. We have to form different business models, and we have to therefore be able to experiment, to innovate, and to be able to do this in all fronts, whether it is on technology, whether it is on finance, or whether it is on community participation.
Genau dies unterstützt die weltweite Initiative.
And that is supported by the One for the Climate project that was launched officially here. If 1% of our worldwide economic GDP can be invested in climate protection, then we can avert the disaster. And that's why we want to found the One Climate Club, to remind us that this is a common task. The idea is to save together, to invest together. People in Germany, India, and in South Africa get together, save together, so that renewable energy and efficiency projects, both in developing countries and in Germany, can be promoted. That's the basic idea that brings people together, because we have a plan and a vision and act together.
Sie sehen, das gefällt mir. Ich verlasse die Foren niemals.
I'm never depressed when I leave these fora because the examples are always so impressive. Like this project too, from Sofina. It's called the Sofina project in Tanzania, and it allows Tanzanian women to become self-employed. It's grown really a lot in the last few years. So that the model of Sofina can spread all over Africa, wherever possible. We have spoken to the International Financial Corporation that wants to promote leasing in Africa, and I think that we can take up our work very soon. And if that works, then we'll be able to reach thousands of African women. Now I have an appointment with the host, that is Church President Annette Kurschus. Well, first of all, I'm very touched that it works, that our church congregations and districts have made their own partnerships so lively, and they've got their partners to come here. It's so moving to see this. And I can see a lot of people I knew before when I worked in a congregation myself, when the partners came from India and Africa and so on. There's a real network of people from all over the world. This is fantastic. And then I noticed how powerful this music is, all the different styles and cultures. There's classical music, the Messia Sambura illustrates that, then there's dancing, illustrating European culture and African tones, and then the school students. It was really moving. All of this is very integrative. The ecumenical dance project has a particular effect on the public. Well, I got goose pimples. The choir was so fantastic, that's why we came. It was most impressive, the different cultures, and I'm glad it all worked. It was incredible. The dancing, acting, singing, playing around, it was so impressive. I'm really, really enthusiastic. Off to my next forum. This forum is called Chic, Cheap, but at what price? We've known for years that the textiles were produced at low prices, and in Bangladesh sometimes with a fatal result. The whole system seems like a perfectly constructed nightmare in which the workers are caught.
Die Mühen der Arbeiter in Bangladesch sind grenzenlos. Jeden Tag wachen wir frühmorgens auf.
This young woman could be a Lydia of today, as told in the Acts of the Apostles. The story shows what happens when God acts. Slaves become free, scoundrels become pious, people start a new life, and all of this is because one heart and one home was opened up. And this small scene in the story of Lydia and the enormous follow-up, all of that makes it clear that it's not we that can do it by ourselves. It comes from outside. It comes from something foreign to us. But we can receive it, respect it, listen, and then reach for it. And through our prayers then, work hard for it. And the second thing, where we open our hearts and are open for others, there God can do something great with us, perhaps something very great. Most of the companies from which we buy clothes are dealers. They're not the producers themselves. And that makes the whole supply chain very unclear. And it means that the employer responsibility is indirect. And we have to work on that there be an international labor policy that comes up with strict rules for the dealers as well. And that's why we said we have to forge an alliance, which doesn't mean telling industry every day what it has to do, but where we, as different actors, forge this alliance ourselves and pursue a goal together. And anyone who drops out of the alliance or who feels they can look away or just jump on the bandwagon, they will notice that we're not just playing around. It's very, very serious as a commitment. In order to really check on the companies, it's not enough to just fly there once for 3 days. We ourselves have technicians employed on the spot. And every company that works for our clothing company, GERRY WEBER, is checked out thoroughly according to a certain pattern with criteria. And I can tell you that we don't work with any company where social standards are not maintained, the kind we have in Germany. And this basic stance that we represent can demonstrate what Paul meant when he said, the church is the body of Christ. And if one member suffers, then all members suffer. And if our sisters and brothers in Indonesia suffer because they're exploited and don't have a living wage, as we've found out here, then our sister churches ask, well, what are you doing about it? We all belong together, and there we are accountable.
Der Festgottesdienst beim Weite wirkt-Festival. Ein weiterer
This is the
geistlicher,
festival
emotionaler
service, a
Höhepunkt.
spiritual and emotional high point.
Dann hat mich beeindruckt, dass wir, glaube ich, hier wirklich deutlich
And then I was impressed that we really made it clear that faith, that is caring for our spiritual life, is interlocked with responsibility for the world. We've celebrated, we had services, we heard Bible studies, and at the same time discussed climate justice and talked about what we want to do in the refugee matter. That connection is very important. And sometimes we have a misunderstanding that we have to take a message out, but we get the message from the world now. And that followed from Martin Luther's discovery that leads to freedom. With an international concert, there's a link up with Medan in Indonesia. Welcome from Medan. Reformation greetings from us all here.
Eure christliche Brüder und Schwestern in Pardede, Halle, in Medan.
The festival, A Wider Outlook Works, had a name that many asked what it meant. My conclusion is that we must be confident that we can forge wider plans, because there are so many forces that are released that way, and that encourages us in faith and in responsibility for the world and the future. There's plenty to do. And definitely the biggest choir of the festival, with over 1,000 singers, impressively confirms this conclusion.
Auch musikalisch bestätigt.